Okay, 7 o'clock. Call to order and determine quorum. You have a quorum. Okay, next item. Minutes. 7 August 23 and August 21. Yeah. Oh, we did it already. Okay. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Okay.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we'll have a vote. Tim?
Yes.
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 Great. Commissioners reports. Tim?
I have nothing really, homeowner had it's a sewer line that collapsed that we missed the construction by about 60 feet, so might give us an idea where we're gonna go next, but other than that, I really have nothing.
So good on my end this week.
Okay. Move on to the next item, modifications and or approval of agenda. Anybody got anything different?
I think Abby needed something out of the agenda for concrete. For the concrete. Oh, gotcha. Fine.
Okay, old business, legal report.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, motion passed.
Vote.
Question. How come in she letting us know what the legal part is about?
We're gonna get there. Larry's running the meeting tonight, so we're just on modifications and approval of the agenda. The legal report will be next under old business.
I got a yes.
Yes.
Motion passed. Okay, old business, legal report.
All right, there I am. I promised you I'd crop up and I'm here now. I don't have a ton to report. Obviously, we missed the last meeting, so this particular meeting or agenda rather is quite full. I see there's a lot of participants and a lot of folks in the audience, and we have a lot of business to get through, so bear with us. I know there's some interesting items on the agenda. I guess from the legal perspective, I'm not going to repeat too much of what we're going to deal with this evening, but just so the public's aware that we had a meeting at 6 o'clock. That was a public hearing on the budget. The budget is on the agenda. That's certainly something that can be discussed and which will be reviewed by the commission, but the public hearing portion of that was conducted at 6 p.m. this evening. That went well. And then the report, the budget didn't increase much, so I think that'll be much at all, actually. Good news to the public in general, and we'll hit that point when we get there. I want to thank Josh Reiner for his patience with me. I had tragedy in my family, and I know the board members were encumbered by substantially similar things. And Josh, I haven't forgotten about you, your email on that point, which I'm very excited to resolve, and I appreciate all your hard work, and I think we will get it resolved. A particular project we've been working on a long time, you should expect a response from me, and we'll schedule a meeting on that point here over the next couple of days. So I wanted to let you know that, and I wanted to thank you for your patience. Other item that will be up this evening is a discussion of the bond and the community center issue. I know that's something of a hot topic, but I think we're making a lot of progress, and we'll be excited to discuss that this evening and field any questions that come on that point. For what it's worth, I'll be in court tomorrow on behalf of the city of Crosby, or Crosby, Sheets, Tioga, too many communities in western North Dakota, I guess. For a loan that was not paid back in favor of the city, and we tried pretty hard to resolve that. So at 9 AM tomorrow morning, I'll appear in court and we'll resolve it that way. I'll update the commission accordingly on the outcome of that proceeding. Reasonably confident in our position, and I think it's important that when we make loans to individuals and businesses within the community, we meet our end, and likewise they meet theirs. So I'll give you an update on that when I know it. Should be soon. I think that's really all I have to share this evening. I will be more than happy to jump in and answer any questions that require my attention during the course of the meeting, or assist the commission as different items come up. So that's it for me.
Okay, more engineering.
Good evening. Have a fairly lengthy agenda here tonight, so I'll try and get through it as quickly as possible. So starting with the South Main Street reconstruction project, I've prepared a memo that's included in your packet here this evening, kind of summarizing the scope of work anticipated to resolve the issues on that project, along with cost estimate for those repairs. One item additional to that is sanitary sewer televising quote included in there. That through some discussions, it was added that maybe opportunity to just check the sewer, make sure there's no issues with that prior to going through the effort of rectifying the trench settlement issues out there. We did receive a quote from CCCO, they've been in town for a couple of the other projects, ongoing projects being televised, and so we did get a quote from them. $9,050 was the quote to do that. That cost is included in the overall estimate that is prepared there. But I guess that quote was when they were in town doing other work, so there was some savings on mobilization there. Probably another $3,000 or so in mobilization when I chatted with them. So some slight changes to that cost associated with the project there. So I don't know if you've all had an opportunity to review the memo that we prepared, but I'll try and keep it short. And I guess if there's any questions on that at this point, I can answer them. I believe that's what you were.
It is, and I appreciate that.
Referring to
You went through a lot of work, and I know you had to work with the other team of engineers and our other evaluators to try to get a good look at what that would entail for us. So it's appreciated. Well done.
It's basically up to their insurance company to accept this or tolerate it or something.
Yeah, so that would be kind of in the negotiations of the resolving the issue with the contractor, their insurance and go on council, so. I don't know how you may wanna
I'll approach
do with it.
RJ, I'll speak with
Okay.
you independently, and probably will have you maybe just speak with RJ and their staff, and we'll communicate that to their insurer, and we'll see what they say.
Great. Any further questions on that?
So we're gonna tell guys before they do this. That'll just tell us if there's any more settling or what.
That would just, I guess that kind of come about, from just the concern of there, and, of there being some compaction issues on the project. And there hasn't been a lot of real dramatic settlement over the sewer trench, so it's not necessarily a huge high concern, but it's out there, and potential issues, so, in order to make sure it's okay, there's no sewer repair costs included in here. Evaluation, so.
It's to rule out the idea that there might be an issue, they figure that spending the 9,000 in order to tell us whatever mobilization was to be. It would be better to spend that and know that it was a non-issue than to have an issue and
Yeah.
not remediate it.
I agree, it would be good idea, give us a comparison to what originally. Dealt by stories.
So I guess as far as the televised goes. You guys wanna proceed with that quote? Have that scheduled this fall yet?
But I mean,
Because it's, I guess, the issue is getting the agreement with the contractor, and those costs are included in there. But also getting them to do the evaluation, in the time. So,
yeah, they'd be up here, so it'd be a good time to do it. I'll make a motion.
something.
Anybody have anything else? We'll vote.
Yes.
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 Motion passed.
Moving on from that item then to the Northeast Tioga Reconstruction Phase 2 project. Kind of a summary of the work progress on that. The concrete work is getting close to being complete on the west half of the project. So everything west of Hanson Street. Utility work installation is complete. They're working on some testing of water reads and pressure testing and whatnot. So that major utility work should be done. They have a couple services remaining to be installed on that project, but the bulk of the utility work is complete. Updated construction schedule is included in the packet. They're showing paving being complete on the entire project here. So October 7th. So they're showing things being wrapped up this year. We have to see how the weather holds out on that to progress to completion. So any questions related to that topic on that project? Okay. I will move on to the next item on this project. We do have a change order for some curb and gutter on 3rd Street. Between Willow Street and Hampton. There was we had a construction staking error. We staked a segment of curb and gutter improperly, so it had to be replaced. The value of that change order is $17,400. And we are, sorry about the issue, and we plan to cover the cost of that. I've had a couple discussions with a couple commissioners relating to this, but I guess what we would propose is providing a discount of the value of that on one of our future invoices to cover that. The cost of that.
What happens when you work with humans?
Mistakes happen, and it's unfortunate, but we're
It's a good thing it's not surgery or something.
so yeah, I guess related to that, there is they're asking for a seven-day extension on the contract as well.
Yeah, I think it's. I'd move to change order. Also,
Okay, if there's no further questions, we'll vote.
yes.
Yes,
Yes.
motion passed.
Next item I have this evening then on that project is contractor's application for payment, number 8. Value of that is for $391,956.49. We would recommend approval of that, and I guess the other topic on that is potentially related to liquidated damages. As of the submittal, the date of submittal of the pay application of September 1st, we are 304 days beyond completion. Of course, it's winter in there as well. So depending on what date the city may choose to set for withholding for liquidated damage on that.
Of that 304 days, Josh, how many would you estimate were attributable to actual weather events? I mean, during the season of construction.
So really, there becomes with winter being in there becomes a time frame that work cannot be completed. Obviously, our freezing temperatures. So really, you're looking at basically the entire winter there, from the end of work last year. So, probably beginning of May, would be a time frame that work could have began again to the project towards completion.
Did they start May this year?
They started I believe the first week of June before they arrived on site to continue.
Do you recall what the LDs are per day?
$1,600 per day.
Abby?
Abby, can you hear us?
Yeah. We didn't hear you. When we were discussing the issue of LDs, somebody thought you were maybe trying to contribute more to that conversation. And I hear that difference, so I don't know if you can hear me.
No, I just wanted Josh to have a more, letdown, instead of that, kind of something with other than, talking right now. And how to give them a right to what they might not be able to do, so that I'm not sure. There could be numbers like their cost, coverage, the contract, the good work, and the brand new work,
Yeah, we can, future ones, we can bring, some additional information related to, costs that have been incurred, to date.
As long as we got ourselves covered with that. And I'm under the thinking, you know, we can charge them for May for LDs. June, July, August, September. We kind of agreed we wouldn't charge them. I think we have a week last fall. They should. As long as we're covered that way. You know, they've expressed they don't think that these LDs should be punitive. Yeah, it's, you know, the only leverage given to us. So it's not like we're really making any money on it. We're lucky to come out of this great news. We can look at it again, or we can come and address this again in 2 weeks, or I don't know. I don't know how much is left, you know, for their pay.
For value of work, probably $1.5 million. Well, that will be submitted on future pay applications. So there are still substantial dollars on the contract.
So the LDs can be assessed later. I mean, we can just hold on the determination of LDs at this meeting, deal with the payout, and you're confident that that can be.
Yeah,
addressed in the
there's,
subsequent
yeah.
application. No.
I'd be okay with that. They've expressed to us, you know, they're not that they, you know, they don't get a pat on the back by no means, but they've really tried, you know, they've hired subcontractors, they've had the significant costs. Gone really old. They've expressed, you know, that they would like us to do these payouts on time for panel stroke. I guess I move we approve this payout and then we can hold on our LDs at a later date, as long as we have that much money. We're gonna be looking at, you know, basically 250,000, somewhere.
Okay, we have one second. Any question? Okay, we'll vote.
Yes.
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 Moving on to the Tioga Dam, emergency action plan and safety improvements. Currently, we're, waiting on the geotechnical work to come back, on the report for that, so we can finalize that. Expect, some of that to be coming in the next month or two, so we'll look forward to, more updates on that project. Tioga Dam Recreation Trail. Yeah, we have some preliminary plans, for that northern bank. Last we talked about kind of northern, edge or north, shoreline of the, dam area there would be, what we'll focus on for now until we have, some more, evaluations completed for the safety improvements. So that we'll have some preliminary plans here in the next week, set up a meeting for review of that and, figure out some of the, details on alignment and components of that project. So scheduling something here in the next few days. The next item I have then is 3rd Street, Northwest and North Hanson Street reconstruction. Construction update on that. The concrete subcontractor's been in town here the last week or so. They have the curb and gutter pretty well finished up, if not finished up on 3rd Street. They'll be moving to North Hanson Street likely tomorrow to continue with that work and sidewalks and driveways. Those components will be installed and then asphalt paving. So I have the contractor's application for payment number 2 on that project. Recommend payment of $756,579.74.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Okay. Okay, no questions? We'll vote. Tim?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Next item I have is KS Industries sewer and water extension. No real updates on that project at this point. KS has been working on some temporary sewer and water service until we can proceed with that project next year for construction. Tioga soccer field floodway modeling, so that has been approved. We talked that a while back. The item on that is the access to that field from the west end of Front Street. I believe I had sent some correspondence to you on that as well, with related to the ownership of that property. There's some, I guess, vague descriptions of some on some deeds related to that parcel there, so it's kind of unclear of who owns it. It could be interpreted as city title dollar that portion of property, but it's not entirely clear. So potential that there may be a need for a title opinion on that to make certain. So I don't know if you reviewed any of that at all.
We would need and I didn't ask that, Josh, and I should have, we would need an abstract. I know that exceeds the cost of the preparation of an abstract would exceed what I'm permitted to spend on the city's behalf without permission. So I'll catch up with Abby and see if she can make a request to see what the abstract costs. If we find, which wouldn't surprise me, that that's kind of an expensive endeavor, even without the review, you have to have an abstract in order to do a title opinion. If we find that that's very expensive, there are some other alternatives, but we would, you're right, you do need to establish at least to some degree of reliability who owns that, of course, because if we don't and we do anything to it, we've committed a trespass. And so, you know, we can figure it out, but I'll follow up with that and get an estimate. We'll make a plan of attack in there. Josh?
Yes.
With that project, just for exiting out of one option.
Yeah, this is, yeah, yep.
So is that a different, we're talking about a different exit point though, right? Or,
Yeah.
okay.
We wanted two different exits.
okay, that's what I thought.
One is the one from that hall.
Yep,
Okay, next item I have this evening then is memo related to the SCADA system for the sewer and water infrastructure. We kind of broke it down to a few different projects. Kind of give I guess, an opportunity to do some of the more minor related things. Build on it to include the full scope of work, but essentially the drinking water system, there would be one project related to that, which is getting the R&T meter vaults, both on the system so that the city staff can have real time pressures, flows, short flow data. The data is already there. It's just we take some integrator services to bring that data into the system and configure it so that it is readable and alarms and whatnot with sending notifications to the public works staff. So that component integrator cost, there's quotes included in the back of this memo for that component. The cost is $3,600. The wastewater system is where there's larger projects that would be required to bring those components on. So the first one would be wastewater treatment plant and master lift station generator monitoring. So both those systems, the treatment plant and the master lift station are already on the system, but the monitoring of the generators currently is not. So that would be providing notifications if there is a power outage and generators running, if there's some type of malfunction with the generator, fuel levels, and other data there. So related to that, there'd be some integrator costs, electrical contractor costs, and not it. The total for that one is estimated at $19,200. The next one is the industrial park lift station and generator. So the industrial park lift station has an on-site generator already. The control panel for that lift station is getting pretty dated. The components within it they have a useful life with all electrical components. So those are getting to the point of it making more sense to replace those components within that project, as well as bringing the generator online and getting the information from the lift station itself of the drum, pump run times and all that data brought into the system as well. So the total for that component would be $109,000. And the last item related to that is the Badlands lift station control panel and generator. So with that one, that is a newer lift station. When it was built, it wasn't integrated into the city SCADA system. So the components, electrical components out there are, it's probably a 10 or 12-year-old lift station. So there's still have a lot of life expectancy left in them. So we would propose to just leave that control panel there, and we would add on a smaller mountable panel onto the back side of that one to house the components to radio components to bring it into the SCADA system, as well as adding that, generator, monitoring to that system as well. So that one is estimated on a total of $76,700.
That might work for our way. Their wish was, they're not in the property. But one and two are. So, that's what's going on to it.
So 1 and 2, Abby, you're talking about the drinking water system and the wastewater system 1.
Yes, those are next up. But item 3 and 4, those are part of which we'll have different lines. Working on anything. So those are like,
It's clear, for sure. Yeah, I don't know exactly what all is necessary. I mean, I know we've talked about, doing an upgrade. And we have a lot of this information. It's available at RT. Phone call later, there. And we'd have to tie in their system, and they'll give us just a look. We can't have no access to it. We can't change any control. That's all we'd be able to do, is just look, rather than make a phone call and say, I don't know, I'd like to sit down and go over some of this stuff. We can sit down and, we'll go over it again. I mean, there's nothing that's really mind shattering, or we have to do it, so. I'd like to sit down with him and find out what he thinks. Kind of
Yeah, I know the RT involved has been something that we've been wanting, and that's really the $3,600 price tag on that, is relatively low. And yeah, the other items, with having it on the SCADA, the big thing is winter storms, that type of thing is, I think, a big concern, when you can't access some of these things, but of course,
we've had some close calls.
but yeah, just wanted to provide that update, so we can sit down with the operator and talk to what direction they want to go in. So excellent. Next item I have then is the CWSRF update questionnaire. That's one of the items I handed out before I came up here. So for those that have been on the commission for a while here, this is simply a notification to the state SRF, State Revolving Loan Fund Program, that the city has upcoming water projects that there is potential. The city may request a loan for funding of the project. There's no commitment, which is simply just letting them know what water projects are out there that pursue. So this questionnaire is updated from previous years. It includes estimate for 25 blocks of water replacement, which is give or take somewhere around what's left for the cast iron asbestos pipe in town. So no obligation from the city, it's just kind of notifying them of what they have for potential projects out there. So approval of that.
Motion to approve.
Also, okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Okay, we'll vote. Tim?
Yes.
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 Motion carried.
And the last item I have is just, what potential other projects the city's, potentially looking at for the 2024 construction. Been a lot going on in the last several years, and, just wanna throw it out there if there are things that the city's looking at proceeding with, for construction next year. Like to have some discussions on that, survey work and whatnot done before, the housing rate stuff, so. If there's anything out there.
We're supposed to do like a half block.
Achievable, but takes a long time to get in. Yes.
So that we can discuss the project for next year and present what to the commission.
Yep, absolutely. Other than that, that is all I have this evening. Any questions for me?
So last time we talked about putting the sidewalk in. Church. Oh, yeah, I'm tying that in. Yeah. And we didn't, I think everybody was kind of confused about that, but we didn't have much information.
Yep.
And they're down there staking that over right now. So, what, I don't have that with me, so what was the cost of that, like 18,000?
Yeah, right around 15,000. Cost on.
Yeah, and I think the park would like to have it. Right?
Yeah, I know the park and park board would appreciate that. And Tyler was confirmed with Tyler also. It originated with Kevin Zarnicki, on that conversation. With the park board and Tyler. So it was just a thought that we wanted to be open for a discussion. If it worked, if it doesn't, that's fine.
I'd like to go ahead. You know, we talked about giving something back to the park this year, and I think this would be good. I don't, we need a motion to do that.
What I think given timing with them, pouring concrete, they're gonna be doing curb and gutter down there tomorrow. I think a motion to approve that would be appropriate. We'll prepare the formal change order for the next meeting, for, documentation of that. Yeah, the commission would like to proceed with that. Go that out and have the paperwork for that.
I make a motion.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Okay, we'll vote.
Yes.
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 Motion carried.
Any other items? Thank you.
Okay. Next order of business here, Economic Development Director report.
Great. I have a few things to run through. August 24th, I was in Bismarck at the Department of Commerce Developer Days, which was really great. And some really good panels that included the Department of Commerce, their finance, the speed tourism division, as well as the short railroad pipeline authority, DOT, Bank of North Dakota, and the rural USDA development as well. So we have to share on the state level some of the projects that are going on in Tioga. Which was exciting to share those and kind of hear some of the other projects that are going on in the states and how we're going to impacting the economic climate of Minnesota. This morning, we kicked off the backyard art project. They started power washing. They don't see anything out there yet, but tomorrow morning they'll be out there with paint. They'll be painting, Becky Kingston as well, and just plan on the slide. It's a pretty big mural that they're gonna be doing. I'm really excited to see that come up. Paint purchased yesterday, but they'll be working that morning. Starting tomorrow and Friday, hopefully, they're hoping to get it all done in a week, but we might go into next week as well. The kids are really excited about it. I met with them the end of August. I explained the project to them, had some input from them, and we shared about, what they'd like to do with that moving forward. So that's going great. I would also like to revisit the kayak rental that we talked about last commission meeting. So those, commissioners who weren't here for that, the kayak rental is kind of like the scooter rental that they have in bigger cities, where you would log in on your phone and you can, rent a kayak out of the locker that would be at the dam. The company is called rent.fun. They have a couple different options. One of them is a 4-locker unit. They have an 8-locker and 12-locker unit. My suggestion would be the 4-locker unit. This would be a one-time fee to the city for $18,000. There is a revenue share option. So the rentals would be about $25. The city would get 50% of that. There's another option where they don't do a revenue share, or cheaper rental fee, and the city just wouldn't get any revenue back from it. Based on their numbers in their rentals in Minnesota, the city would make back the $18,000 investment within about 4.5 years, based on numbers in Minnesota, which they think would be about what they would expect for North Dakota as well. It can be placed on a concrete pad, facing grass, or it can be placed on mulch. So if we're going to be doing the walking path, and wanted to look into pouring the pad later on for it, they can. It does run off of solar and cellular, so we don't need to run any utilities out to there. They would also hire one person locally that would come out and do the maintenance on any of the equipment. They would also clean it by using as well. If this commission does decide to go ahead with this, I would like to go to the Tioga Fund to look at purchasing a dock with a ramp or a launch for the kayaks, make it a little bit easier and safer to get into the kayaks. I've got a couple of different dock options to present to the Tioga Fund. If you don't decide to move forward with this, one of them has rails, some of them don't have railing on it, but the railing is really, it gets expensive, but it's a lot safer to have the rails on it as well. So, any questions as far as the kayak rental project goes?
And those docks are just temporary.
Yeah, so they're floating docks, yeah. The city would own it, so it would never get taken away, but yeah, they're floating and then they get pulled out during the winter time.
I'm gonna be able to see this pretty especially. Like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
And I do have printouts of what the docks look like, there in the packet as well. So yeah, just keep it fun. But
Is there any cities in, North Dakota that uses this yet?
they do have one scheduled to go in Fargo next year. But Minnesota has a ton of them, so they're slowly branching out from there. They've got a lot in southern states. I believe Kansas has some, Wisconsin has some with this company. Florida. But one of the things that they're seeing is a lot of cities are starting to invest in their waterfront property, expecting that people will use it for boats and kayaks and stuff, but kayaks are pretty expensive. To go buy a kayak, you're gonna be spending anywhere from like $300 to $100. But to be able to, someone to be able to rent one for $25 is a lot more useful to get people to use the area, especially if you don't put pretty much money into make them or user friendly recreation.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of not revenue sharing, or just make the price as cheap as possible. And encourage more. The family.
Yeah, without the revenue share, it would cost anywhere, I think, around the $10 to $12 mark for 2 hours per kayak, and there would be 4 kayaks.
Yeah. I like the, what do you call that one? Not a revenue share?
So it would just be the non-revenue share option.
I think it would.
Are you talking
What
about
do you
the
guys
four kayak one?
Yeah. So the 4 locker unit with the non-revenue share.
That's one of.
I've talked to quite a few people in the community and they're really excited about the possibility of it coming. So I think that's going to be supported.
I'd make a motion to go with that one.
I'll second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions?
Yeah, where is this coming from?
It's rent.fund is the name of the company.
And also, is the city going to have some kind of insurance then? Are you on the government?
So before anyone rents anything, they would have to sign a waiver of liability, liability before they could ever even access the kayak. So I had sent that off to local for a while ago, there's a standard one that all those cities use. There would be.
And something the company generates, but they allow the city to tailor it, so it would be, you can't even act, well, based on what they say, you literally cannot pick up the kayak until you execute it, the waiver.
And so another thing, they include the paddle and a life jacket with each rental. Once you put the kayak back into the locker, you have to take a picture of it to ensure that the life jacket may get it back in there and that the paddle may get back in there. If for some reason the life jacket doesn't get put back in there, they lost it, whatever, that unit is put on a maintenance hold and you can't rent from it if it doesn't have a life jacket, in which case they would deploy their employee who would come out, replace it before they would take it off the maintenance hold. Does that answer your question?
Looks like it's out of Northville. I won't vouch for that, but according to their website, their principal office is out of Northville, Michigan. Oh, okay. Sorry. Over here, way down, on the internet. Sign up.
Oh, that's great. Okay, now we'll vote.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
motion passed.
Okay. So I will go ahead and,
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Just want to say that with that, book crop. So people, if you have some books already, the book present. And the next one we can vote.
all right. So that is all that I have for those updates. I do have one more thing that I need to speak on again. I have officially put in my resignation as the economic development director. I'll be finishing up on Friday. I just want to thank the commission for being so great to work with. It's been really wonderful. Being able to represent the city of Tioga, I'm very honored to be able to do that. Very proud of the projects that we have started and finished up, and I'm really excited for the future of Tioga. Sad to be leaving, but it's the right decision for my family right now. So thank you.
Okay, now we'll go to new business. First item, 2024 Tioga City budget.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Yes.
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 Motion passed. Okay, item number 5. City of Tioga garbage disposal bids.
Are aware, and I would in for us to contact after the next fight.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Okay, we'll vote.
Yes.
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 Motion passed.
Guys do a great job. Thank you.
Doing amazing.
Okay, item number 6. Official city newspaper.
So I think that they're aware of now that now. Walk. And, my recommendation is to publish it through, Williston Herald. It was temporary, so we receive a president of the paper here in Tioga. So that's my recommendation. Now, Ms. Gorman, or at least her name's on the Zoom screen. I don't know if the Zoom audio is actually working. I see she's unmuted herself. Can you do a voice check, Cecile, in the event that you want to speak about this at all, since you're present? Gonna assume that means our audio isn't working. I'm just gonna offer you guys the updates as I know them, because I'm not an advocate, I'm not for or against any decisions, but, and Abby has made a recommendation, and I think she's done that with due deliberation, based on what she knows, what, you know, there are pros and cons to any decision, that's just life, and that's how it is. Cecile did indicate to me that the last publication date came and went, there was no sale, that appeared to be feasible or possible for the purposes of perpetuating the Tribune. She did wish, and I wish she could speak for herself, but I don't think she can, because I think there's audio problems on our part, so I'll continue based on what I've received in the way of correspondence from the Journal. The Journal was proposing, just for your information, that they would continue to provide limited, emphasis on the word limited, reporting in Tioga in order to basically provide an account of local events. I think there was one column, and I apologize, Cecile, I don't recall offhand from that email, and I should have it in front of me. I don't remember if it was church news or what is our neighbors events. There was one particular local column that they understood the columnist would continue to publish if that continued with regard to the Journal. Basically, I think what the Journal is offering the city, or the pros, so to speak, that they are suggesting exist with regard to electing publication in the journal is that they feel they would be able to offer greater local coverage of local affairs than the Herald would be likely to offer, because the Herald is, of course, focused predominantly on Williston and Williams County specifically matters, and that's a big piece to bite off there. We've never really worked with the Herald, and so I don't want to pass judgment on the Herald. That may be a fantastic relationship. I have no idea. We've never had that relationship with the Herald since I've been here, so I'm going to refrain from any judgment on that point. Cecile did indicate, and I think you investigated that, Abby. You and I spoke about that briefly, that the rates for publication should be the same across the board, because that's basically a legal cap that's imposed. The difference would come to pass in the way of graphics or other extras that aren't controlled by statute. So I think, and Abby, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you estimated that there actually wasn't any economic difference, or shouldn't be, that we anticipate between electing either the Herald or the Journal. But if I have that wrong, tell us. That's a good update to have.
It's circulating already in Tioga. It would be in line with Turkey. Yeah, it's temporary.
Well, it'll be temporary until May. I mean, I think the statute, once we make the election, we don't get to change until May. So it's not a full year, but that's when we make the decision now, we're stuck with it, barring anything crazy until May, but the commission gets to reassess that each May. We'll have the conversation put out for you.
The Herald is in Williams County.
Are we supposed to have any of that?
Yeah, certainly, if somebody has a position, you can move and second, discuss what you like. If you want to straw poll, you can straw poll, carry your thoughts, but yes, you will need to make a motion. There's no doubt you have that paper. We have publication requirements, so before we leave this meeting tonight, twist your arms and make you decide a paper, we have to do that this week. It's not something we can delay.
It's not permanent anyway, right?
It's not permanent, you get to review it, each May. That's true, so it's not permanent in that respect, but it's permanent until May. That is.
I'll make a motion to use the rules for.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
What's that?
Okay, motion and a second. Any questions?
I just have a quick question, and if maybe you don't know the answer, or maybe it's not even a consideration, but I don't know, I don't subscribe to the Williston Herald. I'm just curious if we know what the difference in the cost of subscription is to our community members for subscribing to the Herald versus the Cross Major.
I don't know that.
So it would be much different than getting it covered once a week.
Let's see if I can do it for you.
I'm hoping that we're taking that into consideration. What is the cost to all of our community members that want to know?
I agree with her. There's a lot of older people who are interested. We think it's about $128 for our subscription to the.
That's true to me.
Sure.
So it's showing, and I'm reading what's on their website here, so don't hold me. There are different subscriptions. There's a digital and there's a print plus digital. It doesn't look like to me on their website, at least, that there's a print only version. The monthly digital looks like it is $9.99. If you prepay for an annual digital only, it looks like it's $119.88 per year. And then if you want the print plus digital that you prepay for a year, that looks like it's $203.88 per year. And that's according to WillistonHerald.com. That's what they're showing. And offhand, I honestly don't recall what the journal is. I have a Journal Tribune subscription, but it's less than that.
And that's for how many papers a week? Like they're more than once a week, right?
Our subscription with the Tribune is $50 a year. This would be the publication. And they do, put this globally, so it would be within our time, it would be public.
The minutes are available, you know, on city's Facebook page, or you could get a copy from the city also.
I'm thinking of some friends of mine that probably, you know, sometimes I even concern for that, and they like to be informed about this. I don't know, and you can probably not that, but that was a very good question.
Can you come to the microphone, guys? I think it's important to get down what you're saying here.
I just thought of a suggestion, you ever thought of bulk mailing? You know, you put your minutes together and then everybody put in a bulk mail for a permit, doesn't cost you too much. Everybody in town will get one. Just like the shower.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll vote.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay, number 7. Traffic on city-owned property.
I'm Phil Shaffett. I got put on the agenda for this. I'm sorry that I'm in uniform. We're a little busy tonight, so. Want to reach out to the commission and see if it was a possibility to trap the, like a few of the waterways in Tioga. Wasn't intending for the dam, but we do have a small property, off 67 and Highway 40 that I know there was one collision with a beaver there, so I know there's some things in that water. And then there's another one off of 105th, just north of 67, another property that's owned by the city that I'd like to trap for bears on. If it comes to be, I know I talked a little bit with Tim, the other day and kind of informed him that I know that they're doing a study on the dam to see if there's a leak there. Sometimes those fur bears will tunnel in to create their living quarters, and those living quarters will then in turn cause dams to leak. So if there is a problem later on where that's an issue up there, I'd be willing to do that. Along with asking for the permission to trap, I also have to ask for written permission because in the state of North Dakota, for a person to trap on somebody's property that's not owned by the person that's trapping, they do have to hold written permission. If you guys would like, I can put up orange posted signs that say that they're trapping in the area when I do that trap set. So that way people that might be moving around that area will know all of my traps will be water sets, and they'll be in water, not on land. So it's likely to be an issue for pets or things like that, unless that is swimming, but then again, that's where the sign can be put. So just want to see what the commission's thoughts were on that. And, yeah, any questions?
Tracks are the
So it'll be foothold and conveyors. Conveyor does a, style of trap that will fill the animal with footholds. They are just that they grab the animal by the foot and hold that animal until I show it to the dispatcher or smaller animals, which are muskrats, and they tend to not be able to outswing that trap, so they would not. Those traps are a 1.5 inch trap, or the size is a 1.5, or smaller, which is about a 3 inch diameter trap.
And you say fur bears, and you mentioned, beavers, and you mentioned, I think mink and muskrat. I mean, is there anything else that you anticipate might encounter your trap, or is that
No.
principally what you're trapping for?
That would be the 3 things that I would trap for.
Don't dogs, would you call them?
I don't believe so, not in the areas that I'm in the trap. Mainly because I'd be on the inside of the, cattail area. So we'll see the big wide bands, cattails, and typically dogs are gonna
And how often do you check your trap line?
So the state of North Dakota, there is no requirement where I
How
came from.
would you
It's
do it?
it's a 24-hour check where I come from, so that's what I'm used to.
You come from Kansas, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, I recognize that accent.
I'm not going to eat your barbecue.
Is this an indefinite or do you have to get permission every year?
It is. Yep, and, it can be set to certain dates. Right. That's another part of the written permission portion of the most drafting. If I end up having, how long
They're quite a bit. I mean, you see dogs running around. I know dogs, but care about the animals. You see them getting in the area. I'm assuming you know where he's looking at.
You're not gonna trap much of them.
No, I only wanted to bring up the dam in case you guys had an issue that wanted to take care of, I'd be willing to go up there, but I do not want to trap the dam. Like, that's not an interest of mine. I want to utilize the 2 small properties that are already from the normal trap where people would walk, things like that. So the one is out in the middle of the field across from the rail station, straight across from 105th. There's a small pond right there. Just, I would say, less than a quarter mile north of 67, 3/4 of a mile south of the tracks. The other one would be behind and south of the residences. Yes.
And for what it's worth, the landowner and the city can always withdraw
Correct.
your consent. I mean,
Yep.
if you grant consent, you know, you can withdraw it 15 minutes later if you decide there's a, with notice. You have to notice the trapper, but you can withdraw that. It's not perpetual.
And I have also, with that being said, I'm not looking for an answer tonight. As much rather you guys have time to talk over and for all of you and go look at those properties and see what issues you see. Could be there, could not be there. Just wanted to bring in details and attention. Let you know that.
Anybody have any questions?
You got like, check that.
I'll be with you later and find out.
And also if there's any legal issues.
We'll check, make sure you're not, I mean, most of that, you're right, you check the state regulation, that's typically a state regulation unless you're working in an area that would have some federal application. Sounds like you checked it. I'll make sure the city ordinances don't say anything contrary. I can't say I've ever seen anyone request to trap in my tenure here, but I'm not aware that it's not allowed, provided that you follow the state regulation.
Right, the only city ordinance that I think that, another thing that just thought of, is if I do have an animal on foothold that is not, dispatched by, ground or whatever, I do have to have a means to do that. The city ordinance is if I am going to use a firearm in the city limits of Tioga, I would have to have that permission from the commission as well. If I was to need to do that, I use 22 shorts out of our goal and have for a long time. With that round, there's no pass through, and have any concerns for it traveling.
Okay. Number 8. City of Tioga Community Center loan. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Brian Osowski. I am the president and co-advisors. We are a registered municipal advising firm. We're registered with the Municipal Securities Rule Board and the SEC, which is required by federal law when giving financial advice to municipalities such as the city of Tioga. We have worked with the city on past bond issuances relating to one improvement bond and then also the sales tax for the completion of the community center. We were asked back in December to look at an expansion to the community center. We put together some numbers at that time. At that point, it didn't move forward. We were contacted recently to look at those numbers again. As you're aware, from December to now, obviously, the challenge has been interest rates continue to go up. And so one of the challenges that was proposed to us was to try and find a similar financing structure that we looked at back in December of 2022. We were actually able to come up with an aggressive proposal that would allow the city, wouldn't cost the city any additional money as far as interest rise that we proposed back in December of 2022 as it would today. And the way we were able to do that is working with, and I'll introduce Chris John, Senior Vice President with First State Bank and Trust out of Williston. The way we were able to do that is not having to advance all the funds right away. You just have to advance half of it at close, and then by August 1st of 2024, advance the other half. And by doing that, obviously you're not paying interest on the full amount for the full time of the issuance. And by doing that, it actually, the interest cost is within a couple $1,000s of where it was in December of 22. So when you think about the Fed has increased interest rates 150 basis points from December of 2022, I'm sorry, December of 22 to today, that being able to basically pay the same amount of interest is pretty phenomenal, actually, as we've seen interest rates continue to increase. And I've shown that in a couple of illustrations to you in the attachments. I think there's, the first one shows basically what it looked like in December of 22. That's attachment A. And then when you look at attachment B, that's based on today, based on this structure. As far as, the other option or the other terms, again, it is a 10-year, it's a fixed rate. The only thing you are pledging is the oil and gas production tax revenues. There is a small account to be maintained, relatively small compensating balance with the bank. And then in regards to that, as far as prepayment, there is a scale. You can prepay for the first 2 years. You're not able to prepay. After that, there is a scale that basically decreases over time, that you can prepay the bonds at any time.
with a little bit of a premium. If you look at what's going on with interest rates, I believe hopefully the Fed is done. There is talk about one more quarter in the November meeting. They're talking about in September, they're probably on a hold. November, maybe one more quarter. I think what you're going to see is interest rates staying higher for a longer period of time. When you look at, again, the interest rate that was provided, and you look at what you're being able to make in your deposits today, you're net ahead, I believe, from that standpoint. So I guess from our standpoint, I don't think we could do any better. I'd certainly recommend if the city wants to move forward that this is as good as you're going to get in today's market. And believe it would be a great opportunity if the city wants to move forward with the project and the bonding. I'll open up for any questions that the commission might have. Anybody have a question?
Brian did a nice job, as, did the prospective lender here, involved lender, laying that out. Your correspondence was pretty good, and I will say I'm certainly not a financial advisor, and I'm not, qualified to say anything too particular. That's why we hire the smart folks like you guys, but, the arrangement that you made at the interest rate you were able to make it is pretty darn impressive, given the environment at the moment. It was kind of eye-popping to me, so.
And I agree. And so
That's the, where the one guy, one is that heavy probably both months.
banks have different needs at different times, so that's not against any certain bank or anything like that. It's just based on their needs at their time of what they want to propose. And one thing I should mention is First State Banks is a solid commitment at this point too. It would be going back and forth at this point. It's they have approved it and they're ready to move forward.
Time of the essence from the city. I mean, that's important for us today.
That's a great question. And obviously with the bank, with interest rates, with the fluctuation in interest rates, I would say yes, that definitely if this is an interest rate that the city wants to lock in.
What is the interest rate we're talking?
3.99% fixed for 10 years. And the original back in December was 3.65% for 10 years.
What's the total loan amount that we're going to borrow?
We kept it at 10 million due to the bank qualification, under 10 million for the bank qualification. So basically, once it's over that, there's certain interest rate that banks can take, and so this allows for them to provide the most advantageous rate when it's bank qualified.
So on 10 million, it's going to cost about $350,000.
Yeah.
3.5% of 10 million.
Over the length of the loan, if let's say you just paid it, it's just a little bit over 2 million that they would pay. So when you multiply,
But if you look at the city budget, their only taxable base is a little over 500,000. Wouldn't the bank be concerned that the doggone interest rate is going to be more than what the city can tax?
they're not proposing any realistic. Oh, sorry, Ed.
So we should help you a little bit here, and maybe we'll get you the nuts and bolts of that. It's Richard, right? I'm sorry, sir. I forget your name. sometimes, but I don't know, years. What Brian is, part of the reason that they were able to structure this, and I presume I don't want to speak for the lender, you're certainly welcome to do that, but I think part of that's a good question, right? If you don't have enough collateral, who would loan to you against the collateral that you don't have at any kind of rate because it's risky? Very good, normal question. Well, here, the reason that they're willing to lend is because the collateral, so to speak, or what's going to be paid for revenue as against that debt is oil and gas revenues, proceeds. Those are statutorily awarded by the legislature. The city has a track record of receiving them. Presumably, the bank has made a prediction that they think that legislative revenue is sufficient to sustain this debt for a 10-year window, and they're confident in doing that. So you're right, Richard. The city, if you only took its property that it owns and it taxes, certainly I don't think they would offer us a 3.9% rate on $10 million. But because there's legislative revenue there, the bank has made that assessment, and it's their bet that we're safe because of the oil and gas revenue. And so the city has before it at the Assistant to Bond Council a resolution, which the commissioners will look at if they wish in a moment, that deals with committing those oil and gas revenues towards this indebtedness. So good question. It's distinguishable revenue, city first of all, it's all city money in the end if it comes to us, but it's from a different source and it's a different collateralization.
So what's the implication if oil and gas money disappears? What's the implication for the lender?
Then what do you do?
Well, then what do you do? Serious, I'm serious, because it could go away that quick. I wouldn't be surprised by it. And I spent 22 years in the legislature.
No, it's a very good question, and obviously at that point, the lender, we would sit down with the lender in the city and talk about what are the options, but there is no tax to the residents for repayment. That's not what's proposed, and if they were to do that, they would need to go for a vote. So it would just, at that point, you would have to go through and negotiate how you would come about with some kind of settlement or negotiation. But right now, it is oil and gas production tax that is only being used to prepay the or pay the loan back.
Okay, so in theory, that money is gonna last indefinitely. In theory.
I'm sorry.
In theory, that money is gonna last indefinitely. That's what you're willing to bank.
No, for 10 years.
Let me finish. Let me complete my thought here. So that money's supposedly going to be there, but I don't know that I trust the taxpayers of this state to not vote in favor of getting rid of the property tax. So if you don't have property tax and oil and gas tax goes away, then what's the bank going to do?
Well, the bond is only for 10 years.
Well, I'm talking about 2 years. The legislature has no obligation to continue that program. No obligation whatsoever. They can decide that money's gonna go somewhere else.
I think we would have bigger problems than the community center alone. We would be down to like a 3-department person if oil and gas goes away. We'd have a city auditor, a police chief, and somebody for the street and water.
Well, and I think the other thing to bear in mind is the risk there. I see where you're coming from. I mean, right, a referendum vote properly taken could upturn the world. You know, people talk about it every day if that's what you're concerned about, and a legislature can change their mind and they can pass new laws. So I don't think anybody's representing, just so you know, I don't want you to have the impression that the city is representing that it knows the predictable will of the legislature for the next 10 years. But that's what the bank does. It's the bank's risk. They've assessed and they're betting that the state legislature will fund at or near that rate such that they can collect their collateral.
They
I
will
don't know.
put it in the note.
I'm sorry?
Are they
That's what's
willing
in
to
the-
put
That's
it in
what's
the
in the
note?
note.
That's
That
what's-
if money goes, oil and gas money goes away, the note is paid, right? That's what's in there.
All that's pledged towards the note is oil and gas production revenue.
But the city would still owe you the money if the oil and gas money went away from the city, right?
I don't know that I agree, and that's a question for bond council, I didn't draft this, but it's a commitment of those revenue, it's not a commitment beyond the revenue, it's scoped to commit that revenue in particular, as I understand it, that's kind of a question for Jim, but that's the way I read the note that I read, or Scott, yeah.
Jim decided to retire in that window.
I know Jim better. Scott's
Yeah, I
answer
know.
too.
But no, all it is pledged is oil and gas production tax.
I got a question here again. Okay, we're talking about another $10 million loan. You have already got a $16 million loan that's not paid. Is that correct?
No.
Huh?
Have a $15 million loan at all.
Well, hold on, let me pause, because I think Richard has a fair question, and I think there, and Abby, you should.
But what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say
hold
now,
on, Richard, just real quick, so you're not merging those numbers. What happened with that 6 and 10, as I understand it, Abby, you can sure correct me if I'm wrong. Last year, the city earmarked $6 million in favor of an expansion. So that money hasn't been spent, it hasn't been borrowed, it's laying on a line item sheet that the city earmarked in furtherance of this project. And it's.
That's not why it was earmarked. It was just earmarked as a Band-Aid. It was voted no to the expansion in December.
Okay, well, however we want to frame it, that was earmarked, and that is beyond dispute, and I mean, you guys can have those disputes as to how or not, but that money hasn't yet been allocated, so Abby, I want to make sure I understand, because I think Richard's question is fair. This isn't 16 million, right? I mean, the total note that we're talking about here, or the proposed note, based on the terms that are being discussed, is $10 million. Am I understanding that?
Correct.
Okay.
But you're still paying interest on the 16 million, even though you got 6 million in a box.
Nope, that's where this guy was tricky. That's what he's trying to tell you, is because you're basically closing a margin. And that's how they were able to drive the interest down. So you're paying a huge amount, because you know how when you borrow, I mean,
Is
this
he
is
talking
oversimplified.
about proposed loan or the one that's already in?
We don't have a loan yet. This is the only loan we're talking about, as far as that's concerned, the upcoming community center, there's been no $6 million borrowed. There's been 6 million earmarked in prior discussions, and we can argue about what it was earmarked for, but that's not been spent.
I think what he's talking about, isn't there still $3 million there?
On the old community center, they would have to give me your numbers. I think there was some indebtedness on the
Yeah,
old
so he's
community
talking
center.
about that, and still owe on that.
But we don't owe 16 million.
No, but I know.
But I think, looking at, now you got so many projects going on in the city now, the school is talking about. I think you're putting the people of Tioga on a collision course of strangling them with tax levies.
We don't have anything to do with the school board bills.
They are building a 1,200 seat auditorium, as you are too. This is, in my opinion, insane. We're going to have 1,200 seats. And this is what is all the rest of it. This makes no sense.
And just to clarify, if the school went for a referendum, that would be tax base. This would not. So just this again is only oil and gas production tax is what's repainted. It would not show up on your property tax bill. If the school goes for a referendum and it gets passed, that would go against your.
Bill is one of mine also. Are you talking about it?
Well, I guess I'm a little confused. I think that's what Brian's trying to explain to you. There are a couple of things, and again, I'm not an expert, but the school and the city are separate. They're funded differently. We cannot commingle.
They are both in this little column.
They serve, yeah, geographically, the school in Tioga is located in Tioga, which is also where the community of Tioga is located. So we're all in the same.
And I did speak to a former administrator, and he said the reason they don't come down to the center with practice and stuff is because they would have to hire a bus driver, they would have to have a bus, they would have to have insurance, and so forth.
I don't know anything about that.
That's
That's
what,
a,
so I was so interested to hear them say that, yes, because it is not feasible to come down to the center for practice.
I think the reciprocal complaint, and I would rather the commission speak to this, but I know that I've received it. The same is true in the reverse though for the community, because schools are different, right? I mean, a school has and local parents, we stand in place of parents, we have to be very careful, we have to make sure we check before the door, and so a school, if they build a 1,200-person auditorium, which we can agree or disagree, it's a good or bad idea, I mean, I don't care, I got no dog in that fight, but who the school lets through that doors is limited, and I think that's the entire objection we've heard from the other portion of the community, is that the community center is for the whole community. The school, rightly, is for school children, and so those two things aren't the same. And there are walls and delineations between them, and so the complaint that I've heard from people who aren't going to be able to use the school, or who don't have students that can use the school, is that they won't have their auditorium, they won't have a place for those extracurriculars, because that's the school's property, and the school has its own rules.
So why can't we work together with the school instead of having two gyms? Why can't the city work with the school?
The school is
There's
for student athletes.
Excuse me?
The school is for student athletes.
Yeah.
Now every person can't go to the school. They're in
So
school.
why can't we make agreements? We
Yeah.
build it so public use anytime.
You can't what? What she said?
And you guys might want to walk up to the mic, and I know that it's echoey, but it's hard to hear her. Sorry, stay close to that mic though, don't you wander off. But I think Wendy, what she said is like the community center, and I'm not weighing in, I'm just throwing the arguments out there, because I think it's really good that the community is having these conversations, so we can have them now. The school can't host a wedding, right? If you want to get married tomorrow, or have a daughter get married, or your brother, or whoever, the school's not going to host a wedding. The community center does. The school doesn't host a baptism, outside of the church. The community center can. The school can't have a group of 42 men who like to play rugby have their tournament in the gym. It's just a completely different application.
I guess I would challenge that, Lynn, that a lot of those things can happen, and they are holding weddings right now in the current community center as it is. There is not a need to have a $16 million expansion in order to host weddings. And I think what Haley had said last time is, in the 4 years that the community center has been here, they've held 12 weddings. So if we're doing a $16 million expansion in order to hold 3 to 4 weddings a year, we might want to think about that.
That's the platform there, such as we have. There's other events, we close down the community center for that, and again, if it's a community center, we shouldn't be closing it down.
One thing I'll just comment. One thing I'll just comment is, when you do find, if you're trying to work with a school, with a community center or whatever, what you do find is, it's hard, if there's an event that you need at your community center, it's hard to schedule your school in there. So I understand wanting to work together, but it's always a scheduling conflict. That's what we've seen when they try and do that. It just never works very well. But again, I just wanted to add that.
Well, and our community center isn't going away. We have a very nice community center, so that's not going away. Just.
You want like, but my concern is about having country western festival, then we'll be serving beer, and I would not like to see that here. So we end up like Four Bears. I would not like to see that.
If we get back to the offering for a minute, you said, the structuring of the offering was a transfer.
I don't know that that's what could you just, I think she's asking about the transaction, the structure of the transaction that's proposed. Could you run that by us one more time?
Is that what you're?
Well, is it just a loan, or are there other things that stipulations attached?
It's just a loan secured by revenue. Again, there was some compensating balances that were.
Okay, that's what I'm asking about. The compensating balance.
Yeah, there,
What is
basically,
that?
they were $3 million was for a compensating balance as part of the loan.
So they have to transfer $3 million to
Correct,
First State. to
Correct.
the loan.
correct.
Are there prepayment penalties?
Yeah, there. That's what I was gonna ask. Can you share the structure of the prepayment penalties? Because we've seen some discontent from the community about being told we have this money, but we literally cannot pay this off, whether we want to or not. So can you share what that means?
So the prepayment, basically the first 2 years, 24 and 25, there's no prepayment. After that, it can be prepaid at any time with a decreasing premium of from 3 to 1 to 0
Percent
percent.
of the original loan balance,
No, of the outstanding,
of the outstanding
Yeah.
loan balance.
correct.
So if they want to pay it off after year 2, they have to pay 3% of the balance of that loan.
Correct.
If they paid the whole balance that year, but if you structured the pay down over a 3-year or a 4-year period, if that's what you wanted to do, that's what he's saying. It's a scale down annually, you would scale down after.
Yeah, it goes down, but it couldn't be paid off without any penalty until year 7. Is that right?
5, right?
You'd be, well, actually, you'd be
Well, no, because the first 2 years you can't pay off at all.
That's
after 2028, so
So 6,
5,
5, yeah.
So 5 years.
After 5.
after, on the 5th year.
At the conclusion of the 5th year, you could pay off without penalty because year 1 and 2 are not
So
paid
year
off. in full.
6.
Year 3 is
Year
3%, year 4 is 2%, year 5 is 1%.
After September 1st, 2028,
There you go.
5 years. In the, as of this, they would be 3.49%. And they didn't have any origination fees or anything like that as well.
Was there an option to move forward without a prepayment penalty?
No,
That would be kind of unheard of.
well, I think again, at an interest rate of 3.99% in today's market, they also need to get paid a little bit too.
What is prime rate? If you know offhand, sitting here today, what's prime?
8.5.
That's wildly impressive when you're getting a loan at 3.99% interest when prime is 8.5%. I wish I could make a deal like that. Talk to the bank later, I'm just not borrowing $1 million and I don't have that kind of collateral. So. Which is still below prime.
Which is still well below prime. I mean, I can't argue with the rate. What I'm trying to point out is the concern that you've had from community members about requesting that debt is paid off and you tell them you can't. I mean,
Or won't.
I'm not arguing with the rate that you're seeing. I'm concerned about the fact that we want to move forward with the $10 million loan for the purpose. And then some of the details, I just want to make sure that that's clear.
The other, just maybe a little clarification on the other debt that the city has outstanding. So we did those as public bond issuances because of the way it was structured. And those are sold off to many different investors. And the way we structure those is there is a call date. And so you are not able to pay off that debt until you hit that call date. I have to apologize, I don't have those call dates in front of me, but I believe those call dates are coming up. So that at that point, the city, if they wanted to, could elect to prepay part or all those bonds at that point. But you do, again, to get those low interest rates, I think the original sales tax one was 3%, somewhere right there for 30 years. I think it was 30 years. again, different interest rate time. I wish I'd love to be able to sit here and tell you you could do that today. And I think the one that was done for improvements, and again, I apologize, I forget what the addition was. Abby probably knows, but that one has to be in the twos, you know. And again, when you look at where deposit rates are at today, there's always that, you know, where's the best use of your money too?
Yeah, you can earn more interest on an account. I mean, making more leaving your money in, which is crazy, in a deposit, if you pay it out and have to go.
Yeah, and refunding improvement bonds are special assessed anyway, so those are just. The taxpayers have agreed to pay for that, you know, and, you know, unless they're prepaying you, the only way the city collects that money is on an annual basis to pay those, so it's hard for you to do anything. And there is an option, I'm actually working with the city of Kildare right now. They might prepay it, but they're gonna still collect their money from the citizens. They'll still assess until they collect their capital that they laid out. But that's one of the options they're looking at, sorry. So it isn't that they can't be prepaid, there's just certain dates you do have to hit to be able to do that. So I don't know if there is a yes right now, but kind of like our rounds.
Well, I think Wendy, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think your point is fair. I think the dispute isn't whether this is a good deal. I mean, I don't think there's a man alive who wouldn't say this is the best deal I've heard of in many moves when it comes to interest rates and borrowing. So for you guys, like you said, I wish everybody could get that deal and have a whole lot more economy if people could borrow money to do it. That'd be great. I think the question and that's not really the question tonight, unfortunately. The question is this a good deal or not? That's really the question before the commission. If you tell me time is of the essence, I want the commission to know that. If the bank says time, I mean, it's not whether this is a good deal. The question is the community center the best proposition for the city? I get that. And I mean, there's dispute that can be had on both points, but I don't want the dispute to be mislabeled. If everybody agrees that the lending in and of itself is a good deal, I think we should be honest as a community and call that, and then we can continue on to the rest of the debate. But it sounded to me like you at least agreed with that, your tribe of the community.
Yeah, I mean, correct, I can't argue with the rate. I guess my question still is, look, is there still an opportunity for discussion regarding the expansion and what the expansion entails before we're looking to borrow money for it? Because there has not been, other than the commission meeting where it was approved, there has not been any communication with the community regarding this new proposed expansion and what that looks like. We had no idea that was happening until we came to that commission.
That they are the next subject after this committee that will look into what is the amount has already been determined as part of what will go in there and how much.
I don't know if that weighs any of your concerns with, and it doesn't have to, but the next item on the agenda is the composition and creation of the community center committee. I know that seems backwards, but it would be backwards to create the committee when you couldn't. I mean, in this situation, if this is the deal, you don't want to backtrack the deal and then go through the planning and then have a situation that's not financially feasible for the city to enter into. So I know that might feel backwards, but that is the next item on the agenda, if that helps you at all.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like the cart before the horse when you don't know what's detailed in your plan, but you know that this is the amount.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. Hopefully we'll get a broad committee of, a lot of different ideas and people can put in there what they want and what needs to be.
At 3.99% interest.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sorry, I.
Question, what's this community building? Is it a goal or is it just kicking the ball around to see what we're gonna do? Is it an actual project that's gonna happen? Yes or no? I mean, as a member of the community, I really don't know if they think it's just something to be kicking around or they're gonna fly. They're gonna fly. It's never really been a decision if it's gonna go
Wrong,
forward.
it is approved.
And also, like, we're always talking about getting tournaments at the community center. Now those tournaments are going to be at the high school, I would guess. If it's all my feet. That was always a big thing, to always get tournaments. So will they not be at the high school?
There's still trouble volleyball, trouble basketball. wrestling. And we've never seen it, but it is there. I was at a Willis this summer, 2,000 entrants.
Yeah.
You have a pinnacle, also you don't have it, so you don't build, right? The farmer who eats the food before you make it. Make it because you don't have a food yet?
It's a past job.
I think you can have philosophical differences, and I hope that the committee can work those things out. I just want to make sure that if it has. You said it, not me, I don't vote, I don't have a vote. I'm thankful for that, but it's approved, it's in its infancy, it needs to be sorted. So if it is approved, and if it's going to be sorted, which I think is a fair question, you're asking, is it gonna be sorted? The agenda suggests that it probably will be, then the question is, what does it cost? And, you know, what does it cost right now versus 6 months from now? I mean, that really, I want the commission to get to that question, because if I don't direct you that way, I don't want to be in trouble for you not understanding what they said, which is that this is a decision you need to make, because it's a decision that won't sit here indefinitely. And I'm not trying to pressure you, I just want you to understand that it's a decision that will support, and we may not have the same opportunity later.
Well, and another question maybe that should be asked is if it's still in the infancy of what is going to be included in the expansion. And that sometimes can take time, getting quotes or designs or things like that. If this loan is approved, you have to advance at least the first half of that money, $5 million right away, where it could be some time before you actually need that. Is that correct?
I don't know if I know exactly what we're asked. I mean, certainly if we borrow money, we have to meet the terms with the money that we borrow.
The design is not done yet. Just to outline of what the square footage will be doing, but the design is not done. There is no electrical plumbing.
Are you asking basically, and I don't know, I think I know what you're asking.
Yeah, I'm asking because they said that
Not gonna apply towards the project, so we're gonna pay interest on nothing and then end up, is that the question?
that's the question.
The commission should answer that. I mean, I think it's unlikely. I know we get slow sometimes. Be awfully slow to take 10 years to build something, but I could be wrong.
One thing I will comment, and I know this isn't, there's still a spread. But it's not, you're not actually paying 3.9%. On that 5, because that 5 is gonna earn. You're
3.49.
actually earning, you're probably paying about 0.5%.
Yeah.
Approximately.
What do you anticipate consummating this document?
Again, I was asked to bring bids back to the city commission. And what we're looking for is the approval of the resolution and move forward. If the commission wants to move forward, they basically would adopt the resolution for us to move forward with getting the bond documents together.
And once it's signed, then you cannot pay it off for 5 years.
That is not correct.
Well, I'm asking.
What you
That's a
know,
question.
you can't pay it off without penalty.
Okay.
you can't pay it off for 2 years. But then the next 3 years, you can't pay it off.
So if the committee decides it's not necessary, you're obligated to a loan that you don't have any use for.
I guess that's not my
Can you explain,
question and
what your-
answer.
can you explain your answer to that question?
I'm sorry, but this is ludicrous.
No, no.
Relevant.
That's, yeah.
You know, there is one solution, and that's a recall election.
No, none of it is relevant. I mean, we're getting really off topic. Larry can get us back on topic, that's great.
How is that not?
Well, I don't wanna argue relevant. Do you have a question? It's Mr. Rudd, right? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Do you have, Scarful, I'm sorry, you're part of that tribe of folks, and I get everybody confused. Can you answer his question that he asked and then answer? And then, I mean, your answer, I'm not objecting to your answer, but I think he wants a shot at the answer too. So can you ask your question again and then let him answer
My
as to?
question is, if you consummate this loan 3 months from now, and the committee decides not to move forward with the addition at all, what happens? Is the city sitting with a loan for multiple millions of dollars and you're holding 3 million or 6 million of their money?
Why would the committee not want to move forward? Yes.
I'm sorry, I wanted the answer from the gentleman at the podium, not from somebody on the.
I'm saying, what I'm saying is, I've been asked to bring forward an issue
Yeah.
based on that the community wanted to move forward with a loan to do a community center expansion.
I understand what you've come forward with, I'm just asking you a legitimate question, I believe.
When are you expecting to decide?
Again,
He doesn't have an expectation. He's been asked to make a proposal at the behest of the commission. This is this was the commission that hired them to solicit the best possible borrowing of money. That's what happened. So, just so you're not caught in the crossfire.
yeah, and I guess I don't want to answer the question of,
Policy,
well, about the decision of the community center, because that's not my place to do that.
any money the city would
You're
borrow.
asking the wrong person.
No, I don't believe I'm asking the wrong person because you're the person presenting the proposal for the loan. And that's what I'm interested in. What happens to the loan if they decide not to do the community center?
If the city borrows money, the city needs to.
Abby, please, just let us have a conversation in this room. You're interrupting.
I'm sorry, I thought that decision was already been made, so that's,
That's true. I mean, that was the
So
point
maybe-
from the end of the table. And I mean, I think this gets,
yeah.
it gets nuanced, right? Like they have approved the expansion and people can like that or not, but it happened on the record. I mean, I'm not gonna estimate an opinion. Maybe it's the world's greatest idea, maybe it's the world's worst one, but it was made, right? Some decisions were made and they made that decision. So this fella, you can shoot arrows at the people that made that decision, but this guy is just here telling you what the best possible money deal is to facilitate the decision that's already been made. And these folks are telling you that the next agenda item will further allow you to flesh out the more nuanced contours of the decision that's been made, which may be the worst or best decision in history. I guess we'll have to find it out, but that's where we're at.
But wouldn't you agree it's good for everyone to know that answer? Including the commission? Because obviously they don't know the answer either.
Well, I think the commission looks they made, I think they're talking the dollars and cents about that decision. But I think that, I agree with you. Nobody's gonna disagree.
I
with
think
me being involved in
it's
that.
probably safe to say that if for some reason the expansion did not move forward and the loan was closed, yes, you would be subject to that debt for at least 2 years and then subject to a prepayment penalty for the next 3 years. And then it can be paid in full, but that's a fair statement, right? That,
I don't know if it's.
That would be a fair statement only if the community center did not proceed.
if it did not work.
Did months ago.
I I get that you have a hypothetical, but yeah, we're saying that that's not a, it's just not a hypothetical that will come to fruition because the action's already been taken. Fair question, we just. It's a done action.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to go with what you stated.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. That will vote.
Yeah, in the last few months, I've had more positive comments about doing the community center than negative. And it wasn't like that before, so I think people are getting used to the idea, so I'm gonna vote yes.
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 Okay, motion passed. Thank you.
A resolution, do you guys have that?
I
We
think
just
it
was the
was-
motion adopting the resolution. So that was your motion, adopting the resolution?
Yeah.
Just want to make
Yes.
sure that's clear for the record. Just want to be read. Let me, can you pass that here? I'm sorry, my staff. Like, not the word, right? I am not going to read this into the record because we have a motion. The commission received, just for the record, the commission received the bond resolution, the proposed bond resolution, which they've just approved, which is titled $10 million City of Tioga, North Dakota Gross Production Tax Revenue Bond Series 2023. That was submitted, as I understand it. I was certainly copied in the email on Friday, September 15th of 2023. The commission, each member of you has seen this resolution, is that right? And you understood what you were voting on when you voted in favor of the motion to approve moments ago?
Yes.
As long as you roll call that, I don't think you need to read the motion. I'm not concerned about that.
Typically, we done that.
Yeah, it's very long,
Yeah.
and that's usually as long as they confirm they reviewed it. I don't have an objection.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, on to number 9. Letters of interest for the community center committee. Has everybody had a chance to see the letters? Yeah.
Now, comments we have to decide who we're going to put on the panel.
Yeah, you were gonna decide composition and number. How many within town, how many within the larger community area, and what the total composition or number of the board was with those two constituents. Do you have a tally, Abby probably does, how many people put in letters of interest? I can count them, I guess, but how many letters of interest do we have? Does anybody know? A lot.
I don't think she knows she's muted.
Okay.
I think on Mamiya, we have, I believe, 14 letters. We have one from Nathan Dermonsted. Randy Ron. A park board. Ben Johnson. Jeremy Wally. Shelby David from the hospital. Christian Bowman from the community center. Roxy Hewlett from Christian Tioga Church. Rick Alford, I believe he said the rent council and was for the community. Robert Harm. Have one from Joe Jacquet from the police department. I believe that is it. Wendy. Put in,
So that would be right, you're saying including Wendy, it's, say 14, Abby? Correct. The commission has to make the decision whether to make it a 7-member board, a 9-member board. So on, so that would be the first decision that they take, to selecting the board members. Yeah, I don't have a preference with you guys, I would love you to pick a number. Make sure you pick a unequal number total, so we don't have ties.
Since we have Sandy and Haley. Sean. That was my top, like, big 9. Someone from the hospital, someone from park board, someone from school, someone from EDC. Business, you know. You get a little bit of everybody in the community. I think we have that.
Did Sandy come here to apply?
Yes,
I didn't hear them.
well, they're kind of automatic.
Just listen. You want to have people in action, that's something to do with the city government. That's a community building, you should have a pretty good mix of everybody in that. Not just the people that fall to have some connection with the city government. That's not a good mix. The red flag right there where you guys go.
So you don't think it's a good idea to have somebody from like Rex and the Bank of Tioga and the EDC, and who should we put on the board then? I'm just asking sincerely, who should we put on the board if it's not community pillars of Tioga? I mean, people that do a lot of work in this town already.
I guess I was of the opinion when you talked about creating this board, you were gonna take people who hadn't already made a decision about it. And give them the opportunity to have a discussion about what would be the best utilization of anything that's done to that community center.
Well, that's what the board's gonna do.
Well, you folks have already decided.
What do you mean we
You
just,
work for the city and are on the city commission and pretty much decided you're gonna move forward with this expansion of $16 million expansion. You know, maybe it's only necessary to do a $6 million expansion because that's what would provide, you know, what's needed.
Or 10 million, because that's what they're gonna borrow, and you'd have 6 million left over. Spend everything.
I don't think you should bar any, person simply because they have an opinion. That's like telling me right now, you know, and maybe you've changed your mind, but you know,
Well, they
when
wanted
you're
to bar-
about
they
for
want-
president, we don't just qualify you, you're allowed to have an opinion. It's America, you're supposed to have an opinion. Go join a board when you have an opinion. Go argue with your neighbors when you have an opinion. So I don't want the commission to think just because people have opinions and have expressed them boisterously sometimes both directions, that that's a disqualification. I actually tend to think that's a good thing. I like opinionated people on boards. I think
You
that's a
wanted
good
to
thing.
bar anybody that didn't live in the city to start with.
I don't think the
They
board
wanted
has
only
decided
people that
that.
live, no, they only wanted people that lived in the city to start with, and I think if you're gonna have that kind of an attitude, you ought to make the people that work for the city live in the city.
Well, let's ask them. I mean, is any member of the board entertaining exclusion, of,
No, I think it was originally advertised that way, but as soon as we found out, we corrected it and re-advertised. That's what happened.
Once it was advertised, yes. Then you said it could be somebody outside of the city. But to begin with, it was city members only.
It was an accident, Bob.
Pardon?
It was an accident. We corrected it as soon as we could.
That's why we re-advertise.
I live in this community too. I feel like everybody's voice is important and I've never discredited anyone that lives just outside of city limits. Their voice is just as important. They work here. They have children that go to school.
400 and some people that we turned in a petition to you folks that you seem to have ignored.
My nephew from Florida was on your petition.
What?
My nephew from Florida was on your petition.
I didn't look through all the signatures. You know,
You asked
did
me
you
to
read them
sign.
all? And were they all from Florida?
They weren't open before. I'm just saying.
So what percentage were from outside the community?
Told the person.
What percentage were outside the community?
hold on, I hate to do this to you, Larry, but I'm gonna control the meeting because I have a trial at 9 AM for the city and I'm not getting out of here at midnight. So I hate to be a jerk and control the meeting, but I don't really want to relitigate the petition. I think that you can talk shop about the petition at night when it's not 9:15. I would like this commission to decide what the composition of the committee is and who's on it and who of these interested parties gets. And I'm not being a jerk.
When you asked people to apply, you said you have 14 people apply, correct?
Yes.
Why can't all 14 of them be on it? You have people that are actually interested in being on it, wanting to know and be involved in it, let them be in.
I honestly don't know.
They're
how it works.
not-
I've never been
They're
through this
not
before, but I
spending
don't
any
have a
money,
problem.
they're just telling you what they would like. So why can't all 14 be on it? They want to be on it, they ask to serve. You always want volunteers, you got them. Let them all be on it. I mean, they're not spending the money.
That's not a terrible idea.
We're gonna give you guys the idea, you're only gonna do what you want. So let them do it.
But it isn't-
Give the ideas.
It is hard to be on a 17-member committee, I would say, but
Well, it's 14.
we got 3 already on there, John and Amy and
Well,
Sam.
that was all together. 14 altogether.
I think
No,
it's 14.
17 altogether. Well, 17 people, they can make a lot of difference. A lot of good ideas.
There's no real again of having a 17-member committee. And sometimes it's people because you have 17 humans, but, and the other issue is the quorum. That's honestly the only concern I would have is in order to have a quorum on a 17-member committee, you know, you gotta have, what, 9
Majority of those present.
9 people present at all times. And no, your point is fair, it's great. You got 17 people that'll show up.
$16 they should show up.
That's totally fair.
No, they can present an idea. Now, yeah, because you're gonna have people that want every sport in the world.
I mean, it's definitely important that if you have to have a quorum of that many people, they have to probably be committed to the cause.
Yeah, and perhaps they could set something up where people didn't show up, they could just eliminate them and maybe get down to a reasonable number later on.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd be okay with that.
You'll have started at 17, is that what you're proposing? And then call the herd?
I think that'd be fair. And, you know, by all means, I have no idea who's pro community center and who's anti community center of these names on there. I have not a clue. I'll make that motion. It's probably not, you know, I feel sorry for the committee. But
Might be the second worst or second best idea on earth, it's gonna follow that order.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I made a motion
Oh,
to approve all these letters.
do we have a second?
Sounded.
Do we have a second?
members on the board.
Well, when it comes down to it, you know that people are gonna have other obligations. Some are
Yeah.
gonna follow, they'll get sick or the family. Something will happen, so you know your board will get smaller. So instead of picking and choosing names, just. go for it.
The seventh, we had a committee of 20 people and we were not getting done in an orderly fashion and we're taking on to just make one decision. We said a board of 9 or 11 would be more manageable for the engineer and the architect. And I feel like that would be the direction that I should take as a commission. We have that board. For the first position. That's why the leader of the lab position, our community center committee, made a lot of decisions on its own because it was hard to get.
That's not true.
And so I was like,
She talked about the original.
Well, to be clear, I mean, this is totally a policy decision, so I'm not weighing in. I'm just making clear that if that composition becomes unworkable, the commission can always revisit it. I mean, this is a committee convened at the behest of this commission. The committee can be reformed or undone at the behest of this, just so the public's aware, Abby. I mean, that's God's honest truth. This isn't just standing.
I'm not saying not to get opinions and I'm not saying on that. I'm saying to make it a more manageable committee so that it can function better. As well as that I see that a committee that large will better particularly that is the truth.
And you want to, reassess that or?
The thing is,
No, I already in motion, there's no second, that's fine.
how do you pick?
And move on to something else.
Larry has to call. I mean, ask for your second, Larry, because if it's a motion and it dies on the floor, you don't get to revive it, so.
There's been a lot of heartache with this community center. There has been, there's been a lot of people that want to put their own opinion in, I get that. And I know it's not what you guys want to hear that are on the committee, because I'm not sitting on it, but why can't we start with the people that we have? Why can't we start with that number? Somebody's just gonna have to be a strong leader and make sure that that meeting goes through. You can't let it. I know it's gonna make it difficult, but some of these people have had a lot of interest since the very beginning.
Not manageable, that.
Oh my gosh, you're going.
So that's function as the function. So this is part of the function.
You know, at the end of the day, in 3 months, we can kind of decide again, you know, if it is, you know, but a lot of ideas can get put out this way. I think everybody can have a chance.
And we have the winner to work through it.
Right. It's not like we're on a huge time crunch where we gotta get everything done. This would be a lot of different ideas from everybody in the community and, you know,
And we don't get accused of
think that's
choosing, because I don't wanna do that. I'm gonna pick who's on the board and who's not. It's hard.
Well, these people are interested.
Well, exactly.
They take advantage of that. Because how many times do you ask for volunteers and don't get them?
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
I think this is a good way to start also.
Okay, motion and a second. How will vote, Tim?
yes.
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 Okay, motion passed.
Okay, number 10, employee new hire.
As a hire for a new, economic development director, part-time and a part-time city worker.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Have a motion and we have a second. Any questions? Okay, we'll go.
Yes.
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 Motion passed. Number 11, visitor promotion application.
Visitor promotion application, April, from, maybe from a corner, my daughter from the city of Tioga Community Center, for the Medora Christian School. The amount is $7,200.
I'd make a motion to approve.
We have a motion, we have a second. We have a motion and a second. If there are no questions, we'll vote.
Yes.
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 Motion passed. Consent approval.
A liquor license application. Of the mark of the law fire. Local sheriff department application. For September 3rd, 2023, and the bills for August 2023.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second, we will vote.
Yes.
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 Motion carried. Do I have a motion to, adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Okay, we can vote?
Yes.
Yes.